show it to me. I saw
Just
footage
go.
of the last one. I'm like, oh God, why is my face so red? I don't know. Anyway, so thanks for your help with this. We have, in partnership with Irene Bloomrad, who's a sociologist at UC Berkeley. There's so many UC schools with, anyway, bless you. We've been looking into just immigration experiences, and Kate's been running a bunch of different studies in this regard. But one thing we thought we would dabble into that would help us like really get a good footing on someone who's immigrated in their experience is just doing these qualitative interviews, which is new for me, new for Kate, and which is why Kate didn't actually run them. We paid undergrad from UBC, who's actually starting at Berkeley this fall with Irene. He won like all these undergraduate awards in sociology. He's done a whole bunch of qualitative surveys before.
Yeah, he's great.
Yes, Skylar. We paid him to do these interviews. And what's really cool is that, these people have had about an hour-long conversation with Skylar, one-on-one. There were only 9 of them, though.
8.
So it's 8 of them. So it's very different data analysis than what we normally do. Normally we ask like a whole bunch of people, like 200, 300 people, to fill out a whole bunch of questions about themselves.
And then we can code their answers as numbers, and it's like a very
you can do numeric comparisons in the word. This is a whole new ballgame for us.
Both of
so
us,
so although we asked people like a few straightforward numerical questions, like I think we asked them to rate their life satisfaction at various points.
Yeah.
The rest of it is all in the narrative. And so what we're hoping to do here with you guys is to kind of extract some numerical information from this qualitative narrative.
Yeah.
And so the purpose is really to kind of help us understand. We've asked these people some pretty pointed questions about the help that they've given and the help they've received in a larger context of their immigration experience. So like, what led you to come here? What was it because your spouse was working? Did you have family here? Blah, blah. There are a lot of questions about that. And then you'll see there are questions about what kind of help did you receive when you arrived, from who, yada, yada, yada. And so what we're hoping to do is ask each of you guys, you two, and then there are 2 others, Ravina and
Ravina and
Lauren, who are also going to be helping. Our hope is for all 4 of you to read all 8 interviews. We'll do it in waves, and to just kind of extract this key. Sorry, I don't know why my phone won't stop. Each of you guys read each of the interviews. We'll do it in waves and kind of pull out some key information. And it's really straightforward in that you guys will all have this coding scheme. These are the questions we'll ask you to try to answer for each of the files. And it's written like Skylar said, I think it's like there's an initial for Skylar. We'll show you.
Yeah, I can pull up.
Recipient. And it's a conversation, so it just bounces back and forth. And his job was to really like, if someone was vague or brief, to kind of
probe and pull a little bit.
And the hope is to kind of just to quantify these in a little bit of just to pull it into the framework where we can analyze a little bit more. I'm wondering if maybe the easiest thing to do is why don't we just show you guys like quickly what the transcript looks like.
Of what a transcript looks like.
It's in a Word doc.
So it'll be in a Word doc, and this is something that you'll be sent as an email attachment. You'll get it and be able to just look at it on your computer. That's why this one's pretty easy. It can be done from home, so you guys don't have to be in the lab. Anytime, like that works. 1 o'clock in the morning, whenever you want to do it, it doesn't matter. So basically, what you'll see is there's sort of like this whole Word doc here. And it goes on for quite a few pages.
32 pages.
Yeah. So basically the I is the interviewer, and then the R stands for the respondent.
Okay.
So we have a copy of all of Skylar's interview questions, so obviously you guys aren't coding anything that the interviewer is saying really. What you're focusing on is the respondent, and so what they're kind of elaborating on. And basically, so like Lara said, the reason that we did this is so that we could have some really rich data to sort of refer back to for our studies and look at sort of some key themes that emerge. And then now what we're trying to do is translate some of those key themes into numbers so that we can do what we're familiar with, which is analyze data. So basically, what you'll be doing is you'll be going through this entire document, And you're gonna be using the coding scheme kind of as a guide. So, you're going to look for, all of these are questions.
I think we should go through them actually.
Yep.
I think it would be helpful for you guys to know what you're looking for, read through it. And by the way, I mean, like when you're coding videos, you can go read this as many times as you like.
Yeah.
If you want, I mean, you'll have an electronic version, you can highlight it if there were things that
Yeah.
like really stuck out to you.
Exactly.
And an important theme we also wanted to highlight, and I think it's on here anyway, is that this is the first time we've coded, for instance, like short spending descriptions. We've never coded anything that's this big. And although Kate has read all of these before, it's certainly possible that like the categories and the options and themes we give you here don't
Aren't
fully
comprehensive.
capture
Yeah.
what people are talking about. So I mean, and this is like a really interesting snapshot into people's lives, right?
Right.
Like you'll probably get to know people pretty well reading these like 30 pages about them. So, you know, if you feel like we're not really tapping into something that is going on there, please tell us. So I think just like bigger picture before we dive into this, I think what we'll do is maybe start with like maybe 2 interviews this week or so. And from that you might say like, you know, this looks good, but next week we do another 3 and all of a sudden a new theme pops up, right? So it might be a little bit of an iterative process, but I think along the way we just wanna make sure we're not missing
Big
things.
picture stuff. So I mean, every narrative and interview that you read is gonna be a different person, obviously, so there's gonna be different experiences. So when we're talking about themes that we're missing, we're talking about like sort of themes that you're seeing across more than just one person.
Or actually, even if one option, like for instance,
Oh,
maybe we'll
yes.
dive into the details. So like, question 1 should be pretty straightforward. Did the participant report receiving help during their transition? We're coding 0 equals no, 1 means yes.
And you guys got the Excel file that I sent to you, so all of these questions are paired in the Excel file, and it should be pretty obvious, because there's like a label on top, and so what you'll do is you'll just put the participant ID number, and then you'll put your answers to each of the question in the corresponding column box.
Yeah. But say for question 2, for instance, who supplied the help, you can check all that apply. Say someone got help from a stranger, neighbor, and then someone mentions a source that we don't have on there, you could fit it into the other. But if all of a sudden we start to notice that like everybody is mentioning 7-Eleven attendee, like then we will make that a separate category, right? So we've tried to build in space for variability, but like Kate said, once we start to see the variability kind of
Consolidating
yeah
a little bit.
into actual repeatable labels, then we'll use that. So a general rule as we go through, I just wanted to mention is, so when in doubt, be conservative. So if there's information about receiving help from a family member, for instance, I'm noticing that family isn't on that list, Kate. Maybe we wanna add on.
Yeah, maybe we wanna add that.
So if say, you know, like we could code, like it might be, so if people say they got help from a family member but don't specify whom exactly, let's not assume it's a spouse, let's not assume it's a mother. So if people say I got help from my mom, then, you know, if mom were a category, you would write, you know, you would check mom. But if it's vague, just family member, then you would just assume the more conservative label. Does that make sense?
And also, if they talk about receiving help, but for whatever reason, it's not clear who they received it from, then there's the
There's an
unclear
option for
option. And that's gonna be consistent throughout all of these categories, so that's kind of what, the first question, so there will be a guiding question, which is, did they report receiving help at all? And then there are some more questions to kind of follow up and tease that apart a little bit, but if it's unclear, like Lara said, stay on the conservative side and just write unclear.
Yeah, so the logic is only code something when there's direct evidence for it. And that just helps us so that, you know, we're not assuming relationships that are there when they're kind of just potentially but no real evidence for it.
And so, yeah, another couple, so for example, these first sort of 3 questions, so what was the type of help received or who supplied the help, those are like pretty straightforward and probably should be really obvious, like directly in the text, right? When we get down a little bit further, like how did the participant feel about the help received, to what extent was the help received convenient to give, that might be open up a little bit more to your interpretation, subjective reading
Yeah.
of the text. And so that's why there's going to be a little bit of a calibration period where we look for reliability between coders. But so some of it's gonna be straightforward and like really obvious, like you could probably pinpoint it in the text, and other parts of it are gonna be up to interpretation a little bit more.
Any questions so far? Cause I realize a lot. Okay, so yeah, so like Kate says, first, so question number 2 is who supplied the help? That, I'm pretty sure Skylar would probe for if someone gave an unclear answer, but he may have dropped, not dropped the ball, but like it stuck through. What was the type of help received? There could certainly be other categories here that we're not catching. How did the participant feel about the received help? So here's where we're asking for a little bit more of a subjective read. You can, if anything is clear, please do check that off. If you feel like there's a strong hint of something, but you're on the fence, you can, maybe just flag it in a comment column and say like, I didn't know if I should code this, I felt like it was strong enough to, but, could go either way, and maybe kind of cite the evidence you had for why you did. And then we have some cool questions, like, so moving on to the back side of page 1, to what extent was the help received convenient to give? So that might sound like a weird question, so I'll give an example of what we mean. So if, for instance, we were moving, we have these stools at our current apartment that we will not need in a new house, we just don't have anywhere where we would put them in a new house, and I offered them to my brother. That is a very easy and convenient way for me to give help, because essentially we need to get rid of these stools, and now I'm just offering them to him. But if my brother said, I need stools, and we didn't have any, and I was like, oh, I'll go out of my way and go shop for stools for you and buy you stools and blah, 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 that wouldn't have been very convenient help for me to offer. So if something was like super easy, like someone was going somewhere and this person needed a ride, that would be quite convenient help to provide. But if someone went out of their way and took a huge inconvenience to provide assistance, then that would be less convenient.
And the same kind of goes for the next question. So, to what extent was the help provided out of obligation? So as you'll notice on the previous page, some of the help that's received is from, like organizations, churches, that type of thing. So if somebody is helping somebody find a job because they work for an immigration services department, and this is their job to help immigrants find a job, then that's more following on the end of obligatory help. However, if this particular person, say, still works at some sort of a immigration resources place, but really kind of goes above and beyond their job to really reach out and try and help this person get a job, then it's up to a little bit more subjective interpretation there as well.
Sorry, I don't mean to backtrack. I just think we should switch the polls here for question 5, because to what extent was the help convenient to give would suggest that higher values should be more convenient.
Okay.
Question 5. So maybe we could just because I think if and when we're analyzing the data, that's the way we would be thinking about it, right?
Right, okay. 1 is very
So,
helpful.
yeah, you could just cross this out and put like very convenient at the top.
So I will send you guys a new coding scheme at the end of this meeting.
Perfect. Yeah, Kate explained number 6. Number 7 was the help received in response to a negative event? Like, for instance, did they lose their car, was their house broken into, something like that? So we still have purchase. Was this help? We adapted an old one of my coding schemes for spending. Was this help made to reciprocate a previous act? So, perhaps this person's uncle helped someone immigrate 20 years ago, and now this person is returning the favor by helping them. Could the helper expect reciprocation for their help, right? So is there that kind of indebtedness? Because I think a lot of the time a lot of people are mutually helping. Now, they might not, actually, this is an interesting point that may or may not come up, but it's worth thinking about. We might expect there to be reciprocation, but there might not have been any on the part of them, or vice versa, right? So they may have done it expecting help, but we wouldn't have assumed that. So we should maybe, if you realize that those are inconsistent or what, we might just wanna flag that. I think right now what we wanna do is answer the question, like, could objectively this person expect help in return? But if the person mentions, like, I wouldn't, I didn't expect this, or I wouldn't have expected them to help me later on, that would be helpful, that would be cool to know.
Yeah.
So those first questions we've covered so far are about receiving help. 10 forward, ask about the participant or the respondent's experience in providing help. So did the participant themselves engage in pro-social behavior during their transition? Simple yes, no. Who was the target of help? Fellow immigrant, stranger, Canadian citizen, friend. Kate, I think when we update this, maybe let's add family to that list.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think my understanding, like, when my grandfather immigrated, they brought, one family member would move and then bring another and then bring another, and
I think that the reason that it's not in there is because Skylar's questions say, like, did you or your family receive help when you arrived? And so if somebody came as part of, like, they brought their whole family, then their family isn't really, like, they're the immigrant also, almost. So it's kind of like wrapped together, because a lot of them talk about, like, bringing their wife and their kids with them, and it's like they, as a collective unit, are the immigrant almost.
Well, so maybe after we read the first week, let's give that a thought then. And for now, if family does appear
Pops
to
up
be
quite a few times, definitely make note.
and put them in the other category maybe for now, just so we don't lose that, right? And then what type of help was given, monetary donation or charity, volunteer, childcare, advice, housing, job employment, food, etc., like others that we're missing. Here we kind of, these questions 13, 14, I think are a little bit more subjective, so in your read of the participant's description and experience, how did the participant feel about giving help? Did the participant feel as though their help was effective? Now, I would suggest, at least for 14, or maybe for both of these, if no evidence is given to the contrary, default to 4, which would suppose neutral. But if someone's like, I felt awesome about this, then you would rate them as like 7 on extremely positive. And if someone, for 14, someone might say, I had no idea whether my help was welcome or received well, then I might code them down from 4 or above 4 if they give any evidence to the contrary, but I would say default to 4 unless we have reason to suspect otherwise. 15, did the participant mention that giving help made them feel more at home or part of a community? I think we must probe for that, or I guess if Skylar probes for that, then obviously there should be a clear answer. If not, this would involve reading into the text a little. So give your best response, and you can feel free to justify it or explain it if you like. To what extent was help convenient to give? Again, I think let's change the polls.
Yeah.
So 7 should be very convenient. This is why, as you guys
Trainings
already
are
know,
often, yeah.
we don't make multiple copies of our questionnaires for large studies until we've done a training session where all of a sudden we're like, oh my god, how did this slip by our 7 edits? Difficult. And now to the back, 17. To what extent was the help given out of obligation versus volition? So they were obliged, they had to do it, or volition by choice. Was the help given in response to a negative event? Was the help, like your neighbor's house was broken into or not? Was the help given to reciprocate a previous acts? If yes, and they explain, please include that. And could the participant expect reciprocation for their help? Kate, does your file have a comments column at the very end?
I think so, but if it doesn't, I'll resend you guys all the materials, cause we'll have to update this. I think, but I'm pretty sure that it does. There will be a comments column for sure at the end where you can flag responses.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we do want difficult and convenient to be swapped. Because unless we swap obligatory and volitional also.
Well, I just thought this question has, the obligatory volition has it, like the 2 polls built into the question. But the other one says like, how convenient was it? Where all of a sudden more convenient is a low number.
Yeah, but more I don't know, I feel like obligatory is kind of like more of a negative, like in terms of like whether or not like the help was purely altruistic or something like that.
Then
Obligatory
volition would be better.
Exactly, volition would be here and more difficult help would be better. As opposed to more convenient help, which is just like, I gave you my stools because I needed a place to put them.
Fair enough. I just think the first and foremost concern would be just clear responding from the coders. So, if the question says, to what extent was the help given convenient to give, then I think high numbers. So if you wanna change the question to say, to what extent was the help given, very difficult to provide, or convenient to provide to very difficult,
Okay, maybe I'll
or
switch to
something.
difficult.
Just make sure the question is
Yeah.
clear. And while doing that, you might wanna think about what would be the most intuitive way for you to run the analyses.
Yeah.
Like, what would you be flagging as higher
Yeah.
values in your mind? Just so that all these guys are on the same page.
Yeah.
I'm just looking back at this, so I think you guys are super clear on that you would answer these questions for each person, type your responses into the Excel sheet, and then, I guess what we were thinking is that if we have 8 people, we would try to maybe do this over the course of like 3 weeks, where one week we would do two, next week we would do 3, and then 3. And I mean, all of this is based on our intuition about how long this might take, but if you're reading the first one and you realize it's taken me 6 hours to read through this, to read through the document for just one person, and then it's taken me like another hour or 2 to code the responses, please send us an email and just say like,
And just
guys,
let us
I'm not
know.
gonna get through 2 or 3 this week, I can only do 1.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we have it here as 3 transcriptions in 1 week,
in
short
one
changes.
week, my suggestion, well, because we don't have 9, we have 8, I suggest like, and I think we'll get faster as we go, I would say 2 the first week and then 3 the following week, 3 the week after that.
Yep.
So that we get to 8 again over the 3-week period,
Okay.
unless, of course, the timing is way off, and we'll keep that in
Right.
mind. And I think we emphasized this already, that if there are themes or options or whatnot that are coming up that aren't captured on our coding scheme, we're happy to adapt this as
Yeah.
we go. As you guys probably, Tasha, you coded kid stuff already? No? Okay, well, this is one general rule for all coding tasks that Jana knows inside out, is, one is, it's kind of a 2-part point here as number 4. So one is how to label the file. So one is, and we try to have like kind of a consistent labeling setup so that we don't go crazy, because sometimes it'll just be like, coding file, n equals 1, and I'll be like, what study
For
is
what?
this, for
Yeah.
what research assistant, and so, it would be really helpful if you had the immigration study coding, or how about immigration interviews? I actually think that's a little bit, because we have several immigration
Okay.
studies, right? So immigration interviews, and then your name, and then n equals the number of people you put your codes in for. So after week 1, if we're just doing 2 people, it would be n equals 2. And then, this is also another important point, every time we, like for the following week where we're coding in now another 3 people, you just add them to the bottom of the file.
Yeah, so you
So-
just update the existing file.
Yep. And the other important point in this is that when you send your coding files, please send them only to
Only
Kate.
to me.
Or you can CC me or CC Derek, but not other coders. So you guys shouldn't be like trading files or whatever. The reason for that is we're trying to get independent codes, and if you guys, it can conflate responses. And what we'll do is, I think after the first week, we can look at reliability, it's gonna be hard to do with just 2 data points, essentially, for coders, but we'll take a look, just out of curiosity, to see consistency. We'll probably move on to the second week regardless, but if after the second week and 5 coding responses seem
We
to
see something off, then we'll probably meet again just to have a
I
discussion.
highly suspect that it shouldn't, I mean, for most of these questions, it shouldn't be problematic. I mean, most of them are like, can you see this evidence of this in the text, yes, no?
Yeah.
It's only the more subjective ones where we may have some interesting differences, and that could actually be a really fruitful discussion, right?
Yeah.
Where we sit down and like, all 6 of
Go
us, or
over it.
perhaps, and do it. Yeah. So, I think that's,
Yeah, I think that that's pretty much it. So basically what I'll do now is I'm gonna send you guys, all of you, you
Mhm.
too as well, the first 2 transcriptions, and everybody's gonna be coding the same first 2 transcriptions. Like Lara said, I'll also send you an updated checklist and an updated coding scheme. And then also the Excel file, as Lara mentioned, so it's already pre-named. So literally the only thing that you have to do is go in, and there will be like a space where it says RA name, and then there will be a space where it says N equals blank, and you just have to put your name in and then update the
Appropriate
N.
N.
Yeah, and so that way it'll be saved the same across everybody. So I'll send you all three of the updated documents, and then also the first 2 transcriptions. And I'll send them to you today. And like Lara said, we'll probably aim for 1 week. If you guys, like Lara said, have trouble getting through it and you feel like it's gonna take way longer, just send us an email and we'll adapt accordingly. So let's see, today Wednesday? Okay, great. Yeah, if you guys wanna send the first 3 back to me by next Wednesday, or first 2.
And this probably goes without saying, but just to do my due diligence. Obviously, these are not, there's no, we don't reveal the name of the participant, but obviously these need to be protected. So Kate is sending you the files, but maybe after you've coded them. Obviously don't go out of your way to share them, on the contrary. If you can delete them when you're done with them, that would be great. Yeah.
Great, and then we will probably, Lara and I will look at the first 2, and then we'll probably pretty quickly after that send you guys the first 3.
I've just made a note in my planner also to send you guys just a friendly reminder on Monday of the Wednesday deadline, so that if you haven't looked at it by then, you could
Take a
do
quick
it
look.
Monday, Tuesday. Oh, and I guess the one other comment for any coding project is when Kate sends these documents around today, please CC me, Kate,
Yep.
just so that we're all on one email thread. And if any questions and stuff arise as you go, I mean, other than just like this one person said this and I'm unclear, but if it's like a larger question about understanding and how do we make sense when people say these big statements or whatever, please reply to the whole thread, because I think
If people have similar questions.
almost everybody will probably come up against the same thing, and I'd like to make sure everybody hears the same consistent answer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome, that should do it.
Yeah.
Hopefully this is gonna be pretty straightforward, and there's only 8,
Yeah.
so,
But I am very curious to hear how long it takes to read.
yeah,
Um,
and fully code.
I know Skylar mentioned really enjoying doing the interviews, so I hope it's just as fun.
And I've read them, and they're pretty interesting. Like, it's not like reading about tax law or something like that. It's like people's experiences coming to a new country, so it's not too
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. Great.
Cool.
All right,
Okay,
thank you guys.
so much for
Yeah.
agreeing to help with this in the last few weeks of your summer.
Yeah. Hopefully it's fun summer night reading.
Yeah.